This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the OnePlus 7T. 6 months and $60 less than the OnePlus 7 Pro we reviewed. Well, not exactly, because actually it's only been 4 months since the Pro came out. But yes, it is $60 less. But you know what? You get almost all the same great stuff. For those of you who are not familiar with OnePlus, they're the flagship busters, shall we call them. They don't have quite flagship specs, but they're getting pretty close at this point. But they tend to be considerably less expensive than the flagships. Back when flagships were $650, they were $350. Now the flagships are $1,000. They're $599, which is what our new 7T is, a nice attractive price, to $669 for the Pro. We're going to look at it now. So the OnePlus 7T is available unlocked, and it's compatible with AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon in the United States. In fact, we tested it with the Verizon SIM, and we got voice over LTE, all that nice stuff. Woohoo! As to what AT&T does, they have their heads up there you know where when it comes to unlock phones and supporting those advanced things, but they're supposed to eventually. $599. T-Mobile will also sell it, just like they did with the OnePlus 7 Pro. $599. And that gets you a pretty capable phone, which in some ways on paper and in real life looks a little bit better than the Pro. For example, the Pro has the Snapdragon 855 CPU. We have a slight bump up to the Snapdragon 855 Plus here. We still have the triple cameras, this time really highlighted in that big round circle. Manufacturers are really getting into making these feature the camera in a visual sort of way, and in the case of these big round ones, making it look like a point-and-shoot camera or something like that. So you still get the 3 cameras, but the telephoto resolution actually went from 8 to 12 megapixels. Imagine that. You still have an OLED display with 90 Hz refresh rate. I think that's one of the most popular features for the OnePlus, because the faster refresh makes it look zippier when you're sliding through your app drawer, all of that sort of stuff. The animations are quicker. It's nice. And it doesn't hit battery life too much either. It's still DCI P3 color gamut. You still have your 3 tuning colors. You can go with Vivid, which is the default, natural, or you can roll your own and go with the custom profile. It is a little bit lower resolution though, and tiny bit smaller, 6.655 inches versus 6.67 inches, so barely smaller, but just enough to make the phone a little narrower and smaller. It's 1080p resolution, 2400 by 1080 to be exact, versus the 1440p resolution on the Pro. You're still talking 401 ppi, so it's high enough resolution that even you eagle-eyed folks will not be able to see individual pixels on the phone. So I don't have a complaint with that. And it allowed them to make it a little bit narrower, just a little bit, and a little bit shorter too. So one of the things I didn't like much about the 7 Pro, and I love big phablets, is it was heavy, it was bulky, and just a little bit easier to hold now, and also 16 grams lighter, and just enough so your pants aren't dragged down quite as much by the phone. One thing I really like is the fact that it does not have a curved display. Curved displays are expensive to make. I think they still have to throw a decent number of them out at the factory as they manufacture them to get good versions of the display. But flat displays, no accidental side touches, easier to hold onto, so I'm pretty actually happy with that. It does not have the motorized pop-up selfie camera that the 7 Pro does. Instead, it has a really, really small teardrop up top. Not really a notch at all, not as big as Samsung's O-holes, and I'm okay with that. I don't mind the pop-up selfie camera. It is kind of cool, but it is one more thing to break or worry about, isn't it? This is also the first phone to ship out of the box with Android 10, plus their Oxygen OS customizations, which are very light and delightful, and I've never heard anybody complain about them. So it's interesting they beat the Pixel, didn't they, the Pixel 4, because that won't be out for a couple more weeks. Yay. And they're typically very good at OS updates. It's another selling point for OnePlus phones. As ever with OnePlus phones, you get a thin plastic screen protector on it, like a film. Take it off if you're having trouble seeing it outdoors in direct sunlight, because it does kind of glare and reflect a lot. The OnePlus 7T has gigabit LTE, yay that. In terms of performance, the Snapdragon 855 is just a little bit faster than the 855. It's not really a reason to upgrade. If you have a 7 Pro already, I wouldn't say, oh my God, you need to run out and buy this. And I don't think OnePlus wanted you to feel that way, because it would be pretty alienating 4 months down the road to say there's something that's better and cheaper too. You get 8 gigs of RAM here and 128 gigs of UFS 3.0 fast storage. If you want more RAM and more storage, it's still the OnePlus 7 Pro, the higher end configurations of that, where you can get even more RAM and even more storage. There is no micro SD card slot on OnePlus phones. We have an ambient display, which means if you raise the phone and you tap it, you can see notifications and stuff on the screen. I would still love for them to have an always-on display, given the fact that this has an OLED display, which is pretty low power when displaying that. Please do that at some point, OnePlus. Kind of miss that from other phones that do offer that feature. Just like the OnePlus 7 Pro, you have an in-display fingerprint scanner, and it's the capacitive optical kind. It is not ultrasonic, which means it's less secure, but also a lot faster. So it's not as bulky as Samsung ultrasonic in-display fingerprint scanners. You have Face ID, not the secure kind, so you can't use it for things like Google Pay and stuff like that. The fit and finish of the phone, to me, look every bit as good as the 7 Pro. You have your choice of two colors. It's a glacial blue, which is a more muted version of the kind of finish that's on the 7 Pro, which is a very deep, zingy kind of bluish color and iridescent. This is iridescent too, and nice looking, but not as flashy. And there's also a glacial silver color as well. As usual, what's missing with OnePlus phones is there is no wireless charging, even though the phone is covered front and back in Gorilla Glass 3D. And it's not officially IP68 water resistant rated. Now, OnePlus says that they didn't want to pay for the certification and pass the cost on to us, but I really don't know what it comes down to for warranty purposes if you do get your phone wet and something does go wrong as a result. So it's nice to have the guarantee as a peace of mind. There it is. Now, the cameras on this phone are quite good. They may not be up there with the very best camera phones on the market, a Samsung Galaxy S10 or Note or the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro, but they're pretty darn good, and they had much better launch with the 7 Pro. The 7 Pro, the software wasn't ready, so all the reviews, including ours at first, were like, whoa, sometimes yes, a nice picture, sometimes not so good. This is across the board competency at its best. You have the same wide angle or super wide angle lens and main camera that you do on the 7 Pro. Not a lot new to talk about there in terms of hardware. Telephoto lens gains resolution and a macro mode, which is pretty cool and pretty neat. You have to hold it about an inch away from something you want to macro, which is 2.54 centimeters, I think, and you can get extreme close-ups, like the lava rock you can see a picture of here. But you do only get 2x zoom, not the 3x zoom that you get the OnePlus 7 Pro, which it was a pretty nice feature. That extra zoom reach was really making me feel more like I had a digital SLR camera. You can shoot 4K video with this, but you can only shoot 1080p video with the wide-angle camera. Don't know why that is, but it is what it is. And you can switch between the cameras when shooting video. If you're shooting at 4K, obviously you're not going to switch to the wide angle. It's not possible. But you can go between the tele and the main lens, and it does a jump. It doesn't do that new iPhone trick of a smooth zooming if you drag your finger. The front camera is the same 16 megapixel selfie camera with a Sony sensor as you would find on the OnePlus 7 Pro, and it can shoot 1080p video. The portrait mode on this is pretty conservative on the bokeh by default, so you're not going to get that mega amount of background blur that you would see with iPhones and with Samsung phones and a couple of the others. It does a pretty good job with edge detection. I didn't see too many artifacts, a little bit here and there, but really that's pretty well managed. And the night mode on this is actually very good. I was surprised lock myself in the very dark bathroom where I can't even see. It could take a very good shot. That was right up there with what the iPhone 11's doing and what the Google Pixel 3 family does. We'll see what the 4 does. It'll probably be maybe even better. I don't know, but it's surprisingly competent. It's funny, when the Pixel 3 came out, nobody else could touch night mode, and now suddenly everybody can touch night mode and do a good job. The phone has a 3800 milliamp battery. It's 4000 on the Pro, so not a huge difference there, but you get the new Warp 30T charger. Now the chargers get a T, just like the phones do with each generation leap, which is kind of funny. So they say it's up to 30% faster than Warp 30 charging. It's pretty fast. It's about as fast as the Note 10 Plus with its factory supplied charger in the box. They say you can charge up a zero dead phone to 100% in an hour, and I saw just about that, so it's true. Battery life, however, is average, typical of flagships with big screens and fast processors, which is fair enough. I averaged about 4.6 hours of actual screen on time with the phone. So that's the OnePlus 7T. You can tell that I like the phone. I think it's pretty great. The hardest choice would be deciding between this and the Pro. I probably would lean towards this for a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to handle, and that higher resolution tele lens, even though I'm losing the zoom reach. As ever, the appeal of the OnePlus is that you get a really nice phone for a lot less money than the flagships. And in fact, at $599, psychologically, that's like where a lot of people say, oh, I really like this phone. I'm very interested in it. I think for OnePlus, the biggest hurdle is still that carriers other than T-Mobile in the United States aren't offering it. A lot of people still like to go through their carrier, but you know what? It's nice to be independent from your carrier too, isn't it? I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos and hit that notification bell.